Why do important things become invisible?
That is quite the question to open
It
with.
sounds like a riddle, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you really sit with it, it's actually deeply disturbing
Yeah.
because we operate under this assumption that if something is critical,
Like your physical health or maybe the foundation of your marriage?
yeah, or even the bedrock of the society you live in, we assume it would naturally be the first thing you see.
Right. It should be the thing you literally cannot miss.
Exactly. It should be the headline of your mental newspaper every single day. But the stack of sources we're diving into today.
Specifically the N.51 thesis and the papers on reflective humanism.
Right. They argue the exact opposite. They suggest there is a mechanical, like a structural reason why the vital aspects of reality completely disappear from your view.
And the scary part is it's not because you aren't looking hard enough.
No. And that is a really jarring place to start this deep dive.
It is, because we usually operate under what you might call the camera lens theory of consciousness. You think I walk around, I point my eyes at the world, and I just see reality.
It feels totally passive and objective.
But the N.51 thesis just hits you with a brick right away. It says you aren't seeing the world. You are seeing a map that was drawn for you by your attention allocation system.
Long before you ever consciously decided to look at anything.
Exactly, long before.
So that is our mission for this deep dive. We are looking at the architecture of that map, the structural layer that exists before observation even begins.
And we should probably be clear up front because I know how these topics usually go.
Oh, absolutely. We are not here to talk about digital detox.
Please know we have enough of that out there.
We aren't going to tell you to turn off your notifications or use the Pomodoro technique or buy one of those grayscale minimalist phones.
If you're looking for a productivity hack to get more emails done, this is definitely not it.
Not at all.
In fact, the sources argue that the obsession with hacking our attention is actually a symptom of the underlying problem.
Right. So we want to do a calm, analytical look at why you see what you see, and more importantly, why you miss what you miss.
Treating attention as a structural layer of reality, not a bad habit you just need to fix.
So let's jump into the phenomena, because the source material lists a few scenarios that I think are going to feel uncomfortably familiar to anyone listening.
Oh yeah, they definitely hit close to home.
It asks, why do we chronically postpone long-term maintenance? Like, we know our health is everything.
It's the only thing that matters in the end.
Right. And we know our relationships are our ultimate safety net. But we will literally let a close friendship rot for 3 years.
While you spend 3 hours fighting with a total stranger on the internet.
Yes. Why do we do that? We usually blame it on information overload, or we say, oh, I'm just easily distracted.
We moralize it. We treat it like a sin or a character flaw.
And that is the trap, isn't it?
It is the trap. The reflective humanism papers are very strict about this. Do not call this laziness.
Because if you frame it as, I have a weak character,
You completely miss the actual mechanism. The source distinguishes between two critical variables here, urgency and importance.
and they are not just different things.
No, they are often direct enemies.
So break that down for us. Urgency is essentially the loudness of the signal, right?
Correct. Urgency is stimulus intensity. It's almost a measure of physics. It's how much sheer energy is hitting your sensory processing at any given moment.
Or like a siren.
A siren is urgent. A Slack notification pinging is urgent. A breaking news banner with giant red letters is urgent.
Okay. And importance.
Importance is value. It's the structural integrity of your life.
And the core problem here is that our internal OS, and that's the exact term the text uses, right? The internal OS.
Yes, our internal OS.
You can't tell the difference between the two.
Well, it's not that it can't tell the difference. It's that the OS is fundamentally designed to prioritize intensity over everything else.
Because of evolution.
Exactly. It's a primal survival mechanism. The source material describes this mechanical process where strong stimuli completely bypass your contemplative filters.
Because if a tiger jumps out of the bushes, you don't want to sit there and contemplate the exact shade of the tiger's stripes.
Right? You don't want to analyze its cultural significance. You just want to react and run.
But today it's not a tiger jumping out at us. It's an urgent email about a spreadsheet error.
But your biological machinery doesn't know that. It doesn't read the spreadsheet. It just measures the intensity of the stimulus.
Oh.
So when a signal is loud, it captures your cognitive resources automatically.
Meaning you don't actually choose to look at the notification?
The intensity the signal chooses for you.
I really want to drill down into this internal OS concept because this feels like the first major pillar of our deep dive today.
It's the foundation of their entire argument, yeah.
The text treats attention as a finite resource, It's not this magic infinite well that you can just keep drawing from whenever you want.
Think of it as a rigid container. You only have a specific bucket of cognitive resources.
And the source uses a very specific Japanese term here to describe what happens with that bucket,
All right, its
right?
term is yohaku.
Yohaku. I was looking this up before we started, and it translates roughly to white space or margin, like in traditional painting.
Yeah, empty space or spare capacity. In the context of the reflective humanism architecture, yohaku is the unallocated RAM in your brain.
The buffer.
Exactly the buffer that allows you to process what is actually happening to you.
And the central argument the sources make here is terrifyingly simple.
If your container is 100% full of reactions to urgent, loud stimuli,
You have absolutely zero yohaku.
none. And without yohaku, you lose the ability to perform what they call recursion.
Meaning you can't step back and look at yourself.
Right. You cannot contextualize your situation. You basically become a simple machine that receives an input and immediately produces an output.
You completely lose the ability to steer the ship,
You're just riding the waves.
which connects directly to that phrase in the text that honestly stopped me in my tracks.
Right.
They talk about transparent pain.
The pain of velocity.
Yes, the pain of velocity. Can you unpack that? Because usually when I'm in pain, I am very aware of it. It's not transparent at all.
This is one of the most profound insights in the whole stack. And it does take a second to wrap your head around. Transparent pain describes the deep friction that occurs when the external world is moving faster than your internal processing speed.
Like the flow of information is just too steep.
Yes, there is a phase difference. The external gradient is too steep for you to catch up. And here is the really crucial key.
Because you have no spare capacity.
Because you have zero yohaku, you don't actually register the pain as pain. You register it as a blur.
It's like when you're driving a car way too fast and your peripheral vision just disappears.
Exactly.
You aren't sitting there thinking, oh, my vision is narrowing. You're just gripping the wheel, trying not to crash.
Precisely. You literally stop generating your own thoughts.
Huh.
The source says time is experienced as a disconnection. You're just colliding with the next moment and then the next moment and the next. You are living in a state of constant collision.
So you might feel generally anxious or exhausted, but you don't realize the pain is coming from the velocity itself.
It just becomes the water you swim in. You don't even notice it's wet.
Which leads right into the uncomfortable question the text poses. In that state of constant collision, do we really have free will?
Do we actually choose our attention?
Right.
The No.51 thesis would argue no. In a state of zero yohaku, the intensity of the stimulus chooses for you.
We all love to think we are the captains of our own ship, boldly steering through the storm.
But if the waves are 40 feet high and crashing over the deck every 2 seconds, you aren't steering. You're just holding on for dear life.
That is incredibly humbling, because it reframes distraction completely. It's not a failure of your willpower.
No, it's a failure of capacity. It is pure physics. If your internal buffer is full, new input just bounces off or it overwrites the old stuff immediately.
You physically cannot hold a long-term thought about your health or your marriage because the short-term noise is occupying all the available space.
There's nowhere for the important thought to land.
So if we accept that reality, that our attention is a finite resource being constantly hijacked by loudness, this brings us to the second major structural insight.
The inverse correlation.
Right, and I think this is the massive takeaway for this deep dive. It's the rule regarding what actually gets left out of our reality.
The text proposes a very hard rule here. Visibility does not equal importance.
Visibility does not equal importance.
In fact, in our current high-velocity environment, they are inversely correlated.
So it's a rule of thumb for the modern age. The more visible and loud something is, the less likely it is to be structurally vital to your actual existence.
And conversely, the most critical systems in your life are naturally quiet.
Naturally quiet. That is such an interesting phrase. Give us an example of how the text applies that idea.
Take the concept of trust, or civic infrastructure, or even just your own biological health.
Right.
You do not feel your liver working right now. You don't get a push notification on your phone saying, hey, I just successfully filtered a toxin.
I definitely do not want that notification.
No, you really don't. But that's exactly the point. A healthy system is silent.
The reflective humanism papers call this the ethics of silence. Or sometimes they use the word atmosphere.
When a system is working perfectly, whether it's a friendship, a functioning democracy, or just your local power grid, It becomes transparent.
It fades into the background.
Yes.
So because our internal OS is strictly hardwired to look for interference,
For the loud, broken, anomalous things,
we naturally stop seeing the things that are actually working.
we literally lose sight of them. The quiet things don't fight for your attention, so they automatically lose the war for your cognitive resources.
Think about it. You only notice the power grid when the lights go out. You only notice the trust in a relationship when you catch someone in a lie.
It's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but applied to your entire perception of reality.
But it's almost worse than that, right?
It is worse. It's
How?
the squeaky wheel becomes the only wheel we believe actually exists.
Because if something isn't squeaking, our attention map just marks it as empty space.
Blank territory.
Let's just sit with that for a brief second.
Yeah.
Because that is a massive distortion of reality. We are walking around constantly deleting the healthy, functional parts of our life from our awareness just because they aren't screaming at us.
It completely changes how you interpret a boring day.
How so?
If you wake up and nothing grabs your attention, there's no crisis,
Yeah.
no immediate pain. Our modern brain, which is heavily trained on high-velocity information, just thinks nothing is happening.
We think, oh, I'm bored. I need to check the news. I need to find a collision.
But the N51 perspective would say, no, you are not bored. You are witnessing the presence of function.
The presence of function.
That silence isn't empty space. It's actually full of structure that is silently holding your life together.
But because it lacks stimulus intensity, your map refuses to record it.
It just leaves it completely blank.
This leads perfectly to the implication that I found really, really disorienting in the reading. If we are only seeing the loud stuff, and the loud stuff is almost always problems or conflict or danger,
Then you naturally conclude that the world is made entirely of problems and conflict. The source calls this the noisy world's mirror.
distortion precedes analysis.
That is the exact quote, yes.
Huh.
We love to tell ourselves, I am a rational person. I consume information, I objectively analyze the facts, and then I form my worldview.
But the source is saying no. The terrain of facts you're looking at has already been terraformed by your attention span long before you even had your very first analytical thought.
The map is rigged before you even unfold it.
We are staring at a map where entire continents, the continents of stability and cooperation and health, have been completely erased just because they were quiet.
And the tiny little islands of disaster and outrage are magnified 100 times over because they were loud.
And then we look at that deeply flawed map and we say, wow, the world is a jagged, hostile nightmare.
But you weren't describing the world.
You're describing your attention allocation.
Exactly. The noise you perceive is mostly a reflection of your own lack of yohaku. It's a reflection of concentrated cognitive resource allocation, not necessarily the total state of the planet.
And obviously we aren't saying real problems don't exist.
Of course not. But our capacity to contextualize those real problems is completely shattered because we have absolutely no spare room to see the context surrounding them.
We only see the spikes on the graph.
It's like standing right next to a jackhammer all day and concluding that the entire universe is made of nothing but violent vibration.
And because we lack that spare capacity, we can't step back from the jackhammer. We just vibrate right along with it.
That is the transparent pain we talked about earlier. You don't feel the noise,
Yeah.
you just become the noise.
Which brings us to the so what moment of this deep dive. But as we promised at the top of the show, we aren't doing the usual here's how to fix your life segment.
The source material is remarkably specific about actively avoiding solutions.
Because usually the quote-unquote solution is just another form of urgent noise to add to the pile.
Right? It just fills up whatever tiny bit of yohaku you might have left.
But the text does mention a concept called health scan mode. And this isn't a fix exactly. It's more of a, I don't know, a stance.
Yeah, stands for a shift in observation. Health scan mode is typically a term applied to AI or complex system diagnostics in the literature, but the authors apply it directly to human consciousness.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
It is simply the act of observing the bias in your map without trying to intervene immediately.
So it's not saying I must forcefully stop looking at my phone right now. It's more like I am noticing that I am currently totally blind to the quiet things around me.
Exactly. It's about attempting to direct your attention toward absence.
Toward absence.
The goal isn't to judge the noise or beat yourself up because you spent an hour doom scrolling. The goal is to quietly look at your map of reality for the week and ask what is missing from this picture.
It's training yourself to see the negative space.
It's recognizing that the silence is not a void. It is a presence. It's the support beam holding up the house.
And if you can shift your stance to actually value the quote-unquote boring flow of a functioning system, you start to reclaim just a little bit of that yuhaku.
You slowly start to realize that the things that aren't happening are just as critical as the things that are happening.
It seems like the source is basically arguing for a profound appreciation of the background.
Background is the perfect word for it. In a high-urgency life, the foreground eats absolutely everything.
It demands all the resources.
The health scan is an attempt to just see the background again, to realize that the background is actually the foundation. Because without the background, the foreground completely collapses.
This really perfectly distinguishes the reflective humanism approach from standard self-help stuff, because standard advice is almost always additive. Add meditation to your morning schedule, add a gratitude journal to your evening routine.
Which ironically just adds more urgency to your day. Now you have another task to fail at. I must perform gratitude by 9 a.m. or my day is ruined.
Right, it just becomes another incredibly loud, squeaky thing on the list.
But this philosophy is subtractive, or maybe perceptive is a better word. It's not about doing more things.
It's about recognizing the mechanics of your internal OS and realizing, wait a minute, my sensor is currently calibrated only for explosions.
I need to recalibrate it to detect stability.
It really changes the way you walk through your own house.
How you mean?
Like, you look at the roof above you, and instead of ignoring it, you think that is a silent miracle of engineering that is keeping the rain off me right now.
Yes.
Or you look at your partner just quietly reading a book on the couch, and you think that silence between us is actually a deep sign of safety.
And you realize that your sheer inability to see that safety before was a structural blindness. You were so desperate looking for a loud problem to solve that you completely missed the solution that was already sitting right there.
As we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with the exact inquiries from the end of the source documents.
And remember, these aren't to-do lists.
No, they are just questions to carry around in that spare capacity if you can manage to find some.
The first question is purely diagnostic. Where is your attention concentrated right now?
Not where you think it should be or where you want other people to see you putting it, but where is the cognitive energy actually burning?
And the second question, which I think is the one that really haunts me, what has quietly disappeared from your map simply because it wasn't loud enough to fight for your resources?
Is it your physical health? Is it the emotional stability of your partner? Is it your own internal peace of mind?
What have you stopped seeing simply because it stopped screaming at you?
And finally, can attention be directed toward absence? Can you look at the silence in your life and see it as a structural presence rather than just nervously waiting for the next collision?
It's a very heavy lift. It goes against all our biological instincts. But if you can do it, you stop just helplessly reacting to the map and you start actually seeing the real territory.
The source material leaves us with an unfinished thought, and true to form, we're going to leave it unfinished for you too.
Think of it as a quiet prompt for your internal OS.
It reads, if attention constructs reality, perhaps the question is not what we see, but